When most people picture Native American homes, one image dominates: a lone teepee standing tall against the plains. It's become a symbol of survival, freedom, and simplicity. But here's the truth: that's only one small chapter in a story far more complex and inventive than most of us realize. Across thousands of miles and countless landscapes, Indigenous builders created some of the most adaptable and climate-smart structures the world has ever seen, long before modern architecture existed. In frozen northern plains, families stayed warm in underground earth lodges and snow domes that regulated temperature better than most houses today. In scorching deserts, thick-walled adobe homes and cliff dwellings stayed cool through blazing summers, using the sun itself as a design tool. And deep in the forests and wetlands, domed wigwams, stilt houses, and woven reed shelters kept entire communities safe from storms, floods, and biting insects. These homes weren't improvised, they were engineered with precision. Every wall, roof, and doorway followed natural law: airflow, insulation, light, and structure. The materials weren't exotic, they were gathered by hand, chosen carefully for strength, flexibility, and harmony with the environment. Each shelter proved that survival doesn't require domination over nature. It comes from cooperation with it. The teepee may have captured the world's imagination, but it's only one design in a vast legacy of innovation. The real story of Native American shelters isn't about one shape. It's about how every region, every challenge, and every climate inspired a unique answer. So today, we're going beyond the teepee to uncover how Indigenous architects mastered the wilderness and built homes that outsmarted the elements themselves. Subscribe now, because every day, we bring history back to life. For generations, the teepee has stood as the worldwide symbol of Native American life. Elegant, portable, and instantly recognizable. But while it deserves its place in history, it tells only a fraction of the story. Across North America, Indigenous builders designed an astonishing variety of shelters, each shaped perfectly to the land that surrounded it. The teepee was built for mobility, ideal for tribes of the Great Plains who followed the migration of bison. Its conical shape shed wind, its poles folded easily, and animal hides provided both warmth and ventilation. But while the teepee was perfect for life on the move, it wasn't universal. In forests, deserts, mountains, and wetlands, people faced entirely different challenges, and they met them with equally brilliant solutions. In the north, homes were dug partly underground to trap the Earth's natural warmth. In the deserts of the southwest, families built thick-walled adobe dwellings that stayed cool even as temperatures soared. Along rivers and wetlands, shelters rose on stilts to stay above water and insects. Every structure reflected the same principle: understand the environment, then build with it, not against it. The diversity of Indigenous housing wasn't random. It was the result of generations studying how wind moves, how sunlight falls, and how materials behave through heat, cold, and rain. Each community developed a design that matched its region's demands with remarkable precision. To reduce the entire continent's architecture to a single image, the teepee, is to overlook one of the greatest examples of environmental engineering ever created. These weren't simple huts or tents. They were solutions, elegant, efficient, and perfectly tuned to nature's rhythm. In the frozen north, survival demanded more than endurance. It required design. Temperatures could fall low enough to crack wood, and storms could bury entire landscapes in snow. Yet, in this harsh environment, native builders created homes that turned the cold itself into protection. The most famous were earth lodges, large, circular homes built partly underground. Thick layers of packed soil and sod trapped natural warmth, while wooden frameworks provided strength against the weight of snow. Inside, a central fire heated the space efficiently, the warmth circulating slowly through the dense walls. These lodges could house entire families and stay comfortable through months of freezing wind. Further north, snow houses, often called igloos, achieved the same brilliance through a different material. Blocks of compacted snow formed perfect domes, their curved walls redirecting heat inward. A small tunnel served as both entrance and air trap, keeping cold drafts from entering. Built in less than a day, these structures could maintain temperatures near freezing inside, even when it was far colder outside. A remarkable feat of environmental control. In regions where winters were less severe but unpredictable, pit houses became the answer. Dug into the earth with only the roof exposed, they offered natural insulation from both heat and cold. Smoke holes above doubled as vents, and doorways were angled to block incoming wind. Each design proved the same principle. The best defense against the cold wasn't brute strength, it was balance. These shelters didn't resist the environment, they cooperated with it. By blending structure, soil, and snow, northern communities created homes that stood quietly against the harshest conditions. Proof that the cold could be managed, not feared. In the sun-scorched landscapes of the American Southwest, the challenge wasn't staying warm, it was staying cool. Daytime heat could blister the skin, while nights dropped suddenly into chill. Yet for thousands of years, native communities built homes that turned this extreme climate into an ally instead of an enemy. Among the most striking were the pueblos, multi-story dwellings of stone, adobe, and clay. Built directly into cliff faces or stacked like sculpted blocks on open plateaus, they were both fortress and home. The thick walls, made from sun-dried earth, acted like thermal batteries, absorbing heat during the day and releasing it gradually through the cool desert night. Small windows and narrow entrances reduced heat gain, while upper levels caught evening breezes that circulated through the rooms below. For semi-nomadic groups, flexibility was key. They built ramadas, open-walled structures made from poles and woven brush that provided deep shade and airflow during the hottest hours. When temporary shelter was needed, wickiups offered quick protection. Domed frames covered in grass, bark, or brush, assembled in hours but strong enough to withstand desert winds. What made these shelters remarkable was not just their construction, but their perfect adaptation to the rhythm of the desert. Instead of blocking the sun completely, they managed it, using orientation and materials to control light, heat, and shade. Even in temperatures that would challenge modern builders, these homes stayed stable, breathable, and efficient. The people who built them didn't rely on outside materials or wasteful methods. They worked with what the land gave them: sand, clay, wood, stone, and shaped it with understanding. The result was architecture that still stands today, quietly proving that in the desert, true comfort comes from design, not excess. Travel east from the open plains, and the scenery transforms. Towering trees, rivers that twist through valleys, and rainfall that never seems to stop. In these dense, unpredictable regions, native builders mastered a different challenge: how to build homes that breathed with the forest and stayed dry through the storms. Among the most iconic were the wigwams, domed shelters built from saplings bent into shape and covered with bark, reeds, or woven mats. Their curved design deflected wind and shed rain efficiently, while their small openings kept warmth inside during cooler months. Wigwams could be built in a day and repaired easily, making them ideal for forest life where materials were abundant and mobility still mattered. For larger communities, there were longhouses, massive wooden halls that stretched over 100 feet. These weren't temporary shelters, but entire worlds of family and connection. Multiple fires burned along a central aisle, heating the space and serving as gathering points for cooking and storytelling. The arched roof, made from bark or thatch, created natural airflow, allowing smoke to rise and vent while fresh air circulated below. Further south, where wetlands and rivers shape the landscape, people adapted again. Chickees, raised, open-walled structures with palm or cypress roofs, stood high on wooden stilts above damp ground and swarming insects. Air flowed freely through the space, while the elevation protected from flooding and animals. Every environment demanded a new answer, and each design proved the same truth. Innovation thrives where necessity meets understanding. From bark-covered domes to elevated wooden platforms, these shelters weren't improvisations. They were finely tuned solutions built from the living materials around them. Each stood as a quiet triumph of design. Homes that didn't just survive the forest and wetlands, but belonged to them. Every Native American shelter, no matter how simple it appeared, was an answer to the forces of nature. Wind, sun, rain, snow, all were carefully considered before a single branch was bent or a stone was laid. These homes weren't built randomly. They were precision engineered, using materials and placement that turned the environment into an ally rather than an obstacle. Builders understood wind better than any modern weather report. In the plains, entrances faced east or southeast to avoid the strongest gusts, while smoke holes were angled to release air without losing warmth. In desert regions, homes were oriented to catch cool breezes during the evening and block direct sunlight during the hottest hours. The same awareness guided their use of the sun. Earth lodges in the north used southern exposure to trap warmth in winter, while adobe pueblos used thick walls and deep-set windows to keep interiors cool and shaded. These were not coincidences. They were deliberate calculations learned through centuries of observation. Rain and snow required their own strategies. Wigwams and longhouses curved naturally, allowing water to slide off instead of pooling. Roofs were layered like scales, with bark, reeds, or grass woven tight to keep interiors dry. In wetland regions, entire homes were lifted on platforms, letting floodwater pass beneath without damage. Insulation came not from glass or steel, but from smart layering. Grass, moss, hides, and bark created breathable, flexible barriers that managed moisture and temperature perfectly. Every structure stood as proof that comfort doesn't come from fighting the elements. It comes from understanding them. Through design, placement, and material, indigenous builders created homes that worked with the land, showing that true architecture begins not with blueprints, but with awareness. Long before sawmills or hardware stores, native builders crafted homes entirely by hand, using what the land provided and refining those techniques over countless generations. Each region had its own palette of materials, chosen not for convenience, but for performance. The result? Structures that could endure storms, heat, and time itself. In the northern plains, wood and earth formed the foundation. Heavy timber frames supported thick layers of packed soil, locking in warmth through months of cold. Builders used forked branches for stability and layered grass between soil layers for reinforcement, a natural insulation that rivaled any modern wall. Farther south, clay and stone became the architect's tools. In the deserts, adobe, a mix of earth, sand, straw, and water, was shaped into bricks and dried under the sun. When stacked, these blocks created walls that regulated temperature effortlessly, cool during the day and warm through the night. Stone cliff dwellings required no mortar. Each rock fit perfectly into the next, held in place by weight and design. In forests and wetlands, bark, reeds, and saplings took center stage. Flexible branches created curved frames, while bark panels were overlapped to create waterproof roofs. Pine resin sealed gaps. Woven reeds created breathable walls. Nothing needed to be transported far. The environment supplied everything. The craftsmanship behind these materials wasn't trial and error. It was tested experience. Builders learned how each resource expanded, shrank, or aged, adjusting every detail accordingly. These homes didn't stand because they resisted nature. They stood because they understood it. Crafted without nails, cement, or machinery, they endured through precision, balance, and care. The hands that built them weren't just constructing walls. They were shaping designs meant to last as long as the land itself. Step inside one of these shelters, and you'll find more than protection. You'll see designs shaped around how people live together. Every space, every opening, every angle had a purpose. These weren't random constructions. They were layouts built for function, warmth, and balance. In an earth lodge, the fire sat at the center, its smoke rising through a carefully placed vent. Around it, sleeping platforms and work areas followed the circle's flow, allowing warmth to reach everyone equally. This arrangement wasn't just practical, it encouraged cooperation. People gathered close to cook, craft tools, and share the day's stories. Life revolved around shared effort. Inside longhouses, multiple families lived under one roof. Dividers of woven mats created private spaces, but the central aisle stayed open, a communal artery that carried heat, air, and conversation from one end to the other. Fires spaced evenly down the length provided both light and comfort. Smoke holes above acted as natural chimneys, proof that these builders understood ventilation centuries before it had a name. In desert pueblos, homes were stacked vertically, with rooftop terraces serving as kitchens, meeting areas, and resting spots. Ladders connected levels, creating a living structure where daily movement shaped social rhythm. The same house could feel cool at midday and warm by nightfall, a seamless response to the desert's shifting personality. Even smaller, portable shelters reflected care in design. Inside a teepee, hides overlapped to block wind, while adjustable flaps controlled airflow. Every detail was tested through experience. Inside these homes, there was order, purpose, and connection. Nothing was built without thought. The people didn't just build to survive outside. They built to live fully inside, shaping homes that fit their lives as naturally as their lives fit the land. Across the continent, native builders faced one defining question: move or stay? The choice between mobility and permanence shaped everything about their shelters, from structure to material. Each design was a reflection of lifestyle, geography, and purpose. For tribes who followed herds or moved with the seasons, portability was essential. On the Great Plains, the teepee stood as the ultimate mobile home. Its poles could be carried by horse or hand, its hide covering rolled and tied in minutes. In a world where survival depended on movement, setup speed and durability mattered more than decoration. The teepee excelled at both. It was stable in storms, warm in winter, and easily repaired on the trail. In contrast, communities tied to farming or steady resources built for permanence. The pueblos of the Southwest rose from stone and adobe, lasting for generations. Their design allowed expansion. Rooms added as families grew, walls thickened for insulation, and terraces converted into gathering spaces. These weren't temporary shelters. They were architectural legacies built into the landscape. Then there were the in-between designs, semi-permanent lodges and wigwams that could be dismantled, moved, and rebuilt seasonally. The flexibility showed remarkable awareness. Life could be stable without being fixed, adaptable without waste. This balance between mobility and permanence revealed a kind of efficiency still rare today. No two environments were treated the same. and no single design ruled them all. Instead, each community built exactly what it needed. No more, no less. For people who lived by the rhythm of the land, architecture wasn't a statement. It was survival in its most intelligent form. Whether anchored in stone or carried across miles of open plains, every home reflected the same principle: design that moved with life itself. Today, when architects talk about green design or energy efficiency, they're unknowingly retracing steps indigenous builders took centuries ago. The methods used in ancient shelters weren't trends. They were practical answers rooted in understanding the land. And many of those same ideas are finding their way back into modern construction. Take passive heating and cooling. Modern homes rely on complex systems to manage temperature, yet pueblos and earth lodges achieved balance naturally. Thick earthen walls provided thermal mass, trapping heat in winter and releasing it slowly through cool nights. Builders knew how to angle doorways and use shade long before thermostats existed. Ventilation and airflow were equally advanced. The smoke holes in longhouses, the adjustable flaps in teepees, and the open frameworks of chickees all managed air movement with precision. Each design kept interiors breathable, safe, and comfortable, lessons today's architects spend years studying. Even the idea of local sourcing, now a buzzword in sustainable design, was simply how indigenous communities lived. Every material came from nearby, reducing waste and travel. Homes blended into their surroundings instead of standing apart from them. When they were eventually abandoned, they returned to the earth without trace. What we call innovation today was once common sense. The builders who shaped these shelters didn't need steel or glass to achieve comfort. They worked with soil, wind, and sunlight, and got it right the first time. As the world faces new climate challenges, these designs feel less like history and more like instruction. The intelligence that built them wasn't about technology. It was about awareness. The ability to see nature not as an obstacle, but as a collaborator. Their shelters weren't relics. They were blueprints for a sustainable future. When we look back at the story of Native American architecture, it's easy to focus on what was built. But the deeper story lies in how it was built and why. Every shelter, from the smallest hunting lodge to the largest adobe city, reflected a mindset of precision and respect for balance. These designs didn't impose themselves on the land. They grew from it. The teepee may have become the symbol, but the legacy goes far beyond that pointed frame. Across the continent, people shaped homes that fit every imaginable environment: snow-covered plains, burning deserts, dense forests, and rising wetlands. Each design solved a problem in a way that modern builders still struggle to match. They used airflow to cool, soil to insulate, and the sun's position to light and heat their homes naturally. Their success wasn't luck. It was an understanding that good design doesn't fight its surroundings. It works with them. Whether fixed in clay or carried on horseback, these shelters were built with purpose. Efficient, adaptable, and sustainable in every sense of the word. Today, architects study these same methods to rediscover lessons long known. That comfort doesn't require excess, and durability doesn't demand concrete or steel. These homes remind us that the smartest designs are often the simplest ones, born from observation, not consumption. So when you think of Native American architecture, think beyond the teepee. Think of the entire continent, a living gallery of innovation that stretched from ice to desert, from forest to floodplain. These weren't just homes. They were blueprints for harmony between people and place. The brilliance of their design wasn't in height or grandeur. It was in balance. And that's the kind of architecture the world still needs.